Tonight we got Clarissa Vazquez, and she has written books called Ghost Hunting in Colorado, Phantom Trains and Haunted Rails of the U.S., America's Haunted Roadways, and a dozen other books. How many books have you written, Clarissa?
So I have 8 books about ghosts and the paranormal out on the market right now, and then I have a ninth book about fishing that's
Wow.
currently on the market. Yeah, I've got another book coming out in early January called Generational Curse, and it's probably my last fiction book. I quite prefer to do nonfiction, uh, but there's been a big demand for fiction over the last couple of years. So this is probably my last fiction book is getting ready to come out.
Congratulations, Clarissa. That's just great. Well, as you can see, she's an author. She's a paranormal investigator, and I believe that some of her books have some of her investigations in the books. Um, she's also too with the Colorado Coalition of Paranormal Investigations. Is that your group?
Yeah, I founded CCPI, the Colorado Coalition of Paranormal Investigators, in 2004. So we just finished our 20th year. We're still going strong and, chasing things that go bump in the night in Western Colorado and Eastern Utah.
Okay, you have America's Haunted Roadways, and we got this very haunted road over here in Sacramento, well, close to Sacramento, Alberta. It's called Dyer Lane.
Mhm.
And I wrote an article about Dyer Lane. In fact, I was probably one of the first ones who wrote an article about Dyer Lane. And I wish I knew about your book because I would have told you, here's my article, do with it what you want, throw it in your book if you like, because Dyer Lane is very, very haunted. And you also do phantom trains. And I wrote an article about a haunted train over at Jamestown, California. So, and all kinds of crazy things happen on that. So, um, when did you start writing books?
So I started writing books. I think my first one came out in 2011. Um, I published 2 books that summer. I did Ghosts of the Heart, A Paranormal Investigator's Journey, which was my first fiction book, but it's loosely based on some of my actual experiences as a paranormal investigator. And then I also did Ghost Hunting in Colorado, Theories for Worldwide Investigators that same summer. So the books started in 2011, which was, what is that, 7 years, I think, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Yeah, 7 years. I had to count on my fingers. 7 years after CCPI was formed, but I've been investigating ghosts since right around 1996.
Wow. And like me, I always enjoyed writing. As a little child, I used to write a diary. And I eventually moved on where I was writing books. I was writing articles actually for Brad Steiger, and my articles were going into Brad Steiger's books, and he's a legend. Um, did you always enjoy writing as a child like me, or did this something happen later on?
You know, I did enjoy it as a child, and I was very good at it as a child. And it was a huge area of contention between my mother and I. She would always tell me, "You need to become a writer. You should become a writer." And because it was what she wanted, I was dead set against doing it. So I did a lot of other things before I actually became a writer.
Wow.
Uh,
And how come you're so interested in the paranormal? I mean, I know reason why I am. Zandine knows why he is. What made you interested in the paranormal? Gravitate towards that.
So when I first started chasing ghosts, it was while I was still active duty in the military,
Yes, yeah, you were.
and the duty station where I was, they were in the process of remodeling their hospital, and the former morgue of that hospital, they were converting it into a physical therapy department. And so, being a very low ranking service member on a very tall totem pole, one of the things that I was tasked with was helping to clean up some of that construction debris. I'm sweeping up brick dust and asbestos dust and everything. And I came back from lunch one day, and standing in the middle of this gutted basement room was, they had torn it down to, it was cinder blocks. They had completely gutted it. Standing in the middle of this gutted room was a man. He was very tangible. He was not transparent or wispy or floating. He was very rugged, handsome, clean cut. The only thing that seemed off about him was what he was wearing, because when I was active duty in the military, we had to wear the green camouflage battle dress uniform. And he was wearing the olive drab fatigues like you would have seen in the 60s, 70s, up to the early 80s.
With flying attack.
What branch were you? What branch were you?
I was in the Air Force. I was in the Air Force.
Okay.
And so he just looked out of place. That was the only thing that was off. He just looked out of place. He was not in the proper uniform. And so I got within about 10 feet of him and asked him, sir, is there something I can help you with? And he looked at me and looked away and walked through a cinder block wall and disappeared. And that cinder block wall that he walked through, it was an exterior wall. It wasn't like it was in the middle of the room or anything. I mean, it was a support wall. So it wasn't like he went around a corner or anything like that. He walked through this cinder block wall and just vanished. And it didn't occur to me at the time to be afraid. I was just kind of going. So I called my mom that night. I'm like, you're not going to believe what just happened. And she says, well, are you going to try to see him again? I'm like, well, yeah, of course I am. And I never did see him again. But, paranormal TV wasn't a thing yet. And the internet was still in its infancy. That's how long ago this was.
Wow.
And so I did what any curious person back then would do. I got a library card. And I went off base and I got a library card and I started reading every book I could get my hands on. I'm reading books by Ed Warren and Hans Holzer and learning about EVP and learning about analog tape recorders and Polaroid cameras and things like that. And I eventually got good at what I was doing.
How many cases have you been on?
The three.
Oh, hundreds.
Hundreds? Okay.
Hundreds. Yeah, I've been doing this for close to 30 years now. So yeah, I've worked hundreds of cases.
And what are some of your notable cases?
Oh gosh. We all have our favorites. We've got favorite clients, we've got favorite locations, we've got favorite ghosts. And there's one town that keeps calling me back. And I think it's because of the makeup of the town. It sits right on the Colorado River. There's geomagnetic instability there thanks to all of the geothermal activity. There's underground hot springs and underground, thermal rivers that run through this town. There's also a very heavy mining industry there. And so there's a lot of things that have the potential to amplify ghostly energy. And so we get a lot of calls to that town. And so it's like, oh yeah, okay, well, we're going back. We're going to a different house, we're going to the house next door to the one we worked 3 years ago or what have you. So, there's a lot of favorite locations, public locations, private locations. I've got a story for just about every circumstance you could probably think of. As far as my experiences over the last 28 years.
I did an investigation in Colorado for a TV show. It was called Mysteries of the State Parks. And they flew me down to the state park with the sand dunes. What's the name of that park? I forget. Um,
It's Sand
it's,
Dunes, Great Sand Dunes National Park. Yeah.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. There we go. Um, um, there was like they said there was a portal that opened up at this park, and I didn't witness it, but I had talked to some people that did, and they saw some old cowboy figures go through the portal. And so that place is very, very haunted with strange things that are going on. They had UFO reports, the portal, they have ghosts and everything else. So, have you ever investigated that place?
I haven't done Great Sand Dunes. I've done other locations. The extraterrestrial reports in that area do not surprise me at all. The portal thing that kind of surprises me because there isn't anything there that could environmentally support or sustain a portal. Um, so that's a little baffling. I'd have to dig into that a little more, but um, the extraterrestrial reports that is no surprise at all.
Why is that?
Um, the further south you go, in southern Colorado, um, is part of that conglomerate there. That includes Arizona, southern Utah, New Mexico, parts of Nevada, even parts of California, Eastern California, what they call the desert Southwest. And for some reason, there's a lot of extraterrestrial reports and UFO reports in those areas.
Zendine, I'm sorry, Zendine, have you ever been to Colorado? Colorado?
I haven't. I would like to go. The closest I've been to Colorado would be Idaho, which is not close.
Well,
That's
I'm
not,
sorry.
not very close.
What were you asking? What were you?
No. I was just gonna say, actually, Colorado. I've always been fascinated when they read about the airport. What's under the airport now. I see that you're a native from Grand Junction. You've lived there your whole life, huh?
Minus when I was in the service, and I lived in Texas for 4 years after I got out of the service. But yeah, I've lived in Colorado for the majority of my life.
I find that fascinating because like it just seems like when I first heard about Colorado, my mother had a boyfriend, this guy named Danny, who was from there, and he tried to tell us about it, but it was the first time I met anybody from out of state, and I want to know, in 2014 I saw that you did a children's book. Um, how did you go from what you were normally doing to something like that, and how was it for you to transition?
So it was a really easy transition. But at the time, I had two very, very young goddaughters.
Okay.
We were going through a phase about, oh, there's a monster in my room, there's a monster under my bed, and so it was a nightly thing, where it's like, okay, we're gonna call Auntie Clarissa and have her come, chase away the monster under your bed.
Yeah.
And I'm also a parent. My son is older than my goddaughters, but he was also learning how to be a paranormal researcher. And
Okay.
so when I wrote this book, I designed the book to not dismiss what the children are going through. But the book is more geared toward empowering the children to take control of their surroundings and conquer those fears. To show them, while I don't use the word pareidolia, because it's just, it's way too big of a word. It's a big word for most adults, let alone kids. But, I teach them about pareidolia, and how their eyes can make them think that something is there when it's actually something else. Like a shadow from a tree, or a stuffed animal in the corner of your room, when the lights and the shadows play tricks. And so that book is really geared toward, number one, not dismissing the fears and the experiences that the children are having, but really empowering them to take control of their surroundings and conquer those fears.
Oh, okay.
how many people you have on your team?
Right now, there's 7 of us. We've had as many as 20, but just like any other organization or even business agency, people, they come, they go, it ebbs, it flows. So right now, there's 7 of us.
Okay. Oh, what do you think about orbs?
I have a nifty little acronym for orbs. I call them ordinary random bits of stuff. Oh,
So what do you think about
I'm not a big believer in orb phenomena.
what do you think about the New Jersey drone situation?
Wow, that whole New Jersey that is way above my pay grade and above my security clearance level. I that's a whole nother. I don't think that's paranormal at all. That's
Wow,
Uh,
interesting. Interesting.
Clarissa, I was in the Army for 12 years. So thank you for your service. So,
thank you for yours.
um,
So,
oh, and also too, have you ever heard of this? Okay, with the orbs, back to the orbs.
Goodness.
Like with my group, we look for intelligent movement. And I had a case where it was Emily who drains the energy from the occupants of the house. So one of my investigators says, "Hey, I have to sit down. I'm feeling very drained." And I said, "I wonder if Emily's doing that." And I said, "Emily, if you're listening to me, kiss him on the mouth." And with 3 cameras, we took a picture and we got an orb on his mouth showing intelligent movement. And I said, "Emily, if you're listening again, sit on his lap." We take a picture and there's an orb hovering over his lap. Intelligent movement. Do you do anything like that?
Not necessarily with orb phenomena. We will experiment more with the electronics, like the REM pods or the flashlights or things of that nature, trying to get intelligent interaction. As far as the orbs go, uh, it's if they emit their own light source, or and cast a shadow themselves, then we'll be more inclined uh, to put some more weight into it than just a gray or blue or pink or whatever sphere in a photograph.
What I do now is I put my hand on the wall and I said, if there's any ghosts here, I said, appear by my hand. And sometimes I get a picture of an orb on my hand. So that's the kind of thing, that we do. Also, too, you wrote a book called America's Haunted Roadways.
Mhm.
What are some of the haunted roadways? Was it like Route 66?
So the Phantom Hitchhiker Project in America's Haunted Roadways was the result of a multi-year scientific experiment that we conducted. And what we were trying to do was we were trying to ascertain if roadside locations where an accident or catastrophe of some sort that resulted in a human fatality subsequently resulted in geographic psychic trauma on the land. And thus a phantom hitchhiker or some other roadside spirit. And we conducted this series of investigations, this project, for years until we felt enough data to close the experiment and move forward. And so from there, we took the data that we had, rather, I took the data that we had, and I started weighing it against all of this ghost lore around the country, about, phantom hitchhikers or haunted roads, things of that nature, and to see if there was a common theme with that. And that's how that book was born, was that 5-year experiment that we conducted to try to ascertain if those roadside locations had geographic psychic trauma imprints on them.
Wait, Zandine, I know you got a bunch of stuff you want to ask.
no, I was just gonna say, and listen, when I was listening to Clarissa, it was a lot of things, but we had a guest on here that's like highly educated, and he likes to work on some of these shows, but he has debunked so many things. I don't think they want him on there. And so, like, certain gadgets we use in the field, different things, he's totally debunked a lot of that. I mean, as far as his research, but even things
Mhm.
like the ghost itself, he was more attributing to it to the living people's energy sign there, and
Mhm.
stuff like that. The reverse of almost everything we are talking about. But um I still think when you go out to a place, whether you're mapping it or understanding the correct terms, if it's going to be different and something that moves you, it's just that's just going to happen. It's not normal, paranormal.
Right.
So if so I listened to that, and it was a trip because, like, the ghost boxes, they spent like 5 or 6 years on those. They said those are trash. They talked about the
Mhm.
frequency boxes. They talked about the vortex, apparitions. It's about
Or
everything. And
connect
it's like,
connect
but
the stick figures. They
stick figures.
trash that
So,
one. Yeah.
Right.
and
The
even and,
SLS software. Yeah.
and we end up even talking about the mongoose. But I was gonna say what's interesting about you, and you can talk about that, Paul. But what's interesting about you is that you do seem to have the side where, so you got the military side where, hey, listen, if I ask my dad about UFOs, he'll go, well, what makes you think it's not us? Right?
Mhm.
He's not going to first be like, woo, 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 and you didn't either. But at the same time, people such as yourself and my dad, you guys have your line to where, hey, maybe it's something else. Where do you draw the line? Like, with your experience, like, hey, it could be something else. It'd be above top secret clearance, it's not military, it's not anything else. When do you start to get compelled with stuff like that where it crosses your line?
So I follow the principle there, and it's a multifaceted principle. The first thing is, you can't prove the paranormal with the paranormal. So you're immediately going to throw out not utilize things um, like psychics or mediums or dowsing rods,
Okay.
Ouija boards, pendulums, things like that. You're not going to utilize things like that. And then the second layer of it is you have to factor out the possible, or fact before you can factor in the potential.
Right.
And
I see what
so,
you
so you really have to work hard at what you're doing. You can't just, when you're conducting an investigation, you have to actually investigate. You can't just walk around, with your gadgets and your toys and your tools and
Yeah.
go, and
Yeah.
listen to all the beeps and the blinks and the woo woos. You have to actually investigate and, try to ascertain what is going on inside that location and work to debunk, what they're experiencing
If you can. Yeah.
before you can factor in what the potential is. Now, that's not to say that we don't have some really credible data that indicates paranormal activity. We do. um, but we're doing ourselves, our clients, and the field of research a disservice by just jumping in and going, oh yeah, it's a ghost.
Right.
You
Oh, also to Clarissa, you live in Colorado, so I have to ask you about the Denver International Airport. When I
Right.
was there, I saw the statues, I saw all the murals and everything else. What do you think? Do you think they got something secret hidden at the Denver International Airport?
you know I think that there are tunnels under the airport. Whether they're for nefarious purposes, I kind of doubt that. It's probably more for maintenance or emergency purposes. Uh, I think the closer you get to NORAD, is where you're going to find,
Ah,
a little more of the Operation Sneaky Weasel kind of stuff. Uh, but as far as the underground tunnels, yeah, I'm sure they're there. But if they're there for some sort of top secret purpose, probably not. It's more likely maintenance or infrastructure, um, or even emergency situations. Like evacuation routes, storm shelter, storm routes, stuff like that.
so you don't believe in
I
the reptilian rumors, huh? And what is it with the structure that just made at the airport that shows the Arctic walls? Like, we have walls that we have yet to reach. As a stat, it shows the Earth is flat, but it's not saying anything about flat. It shows these Arctic walls, and it shows a
Mhm.
large pendulum of the Earth coming down. It's an incredible piece of work. But I wonder what they're trying to say, because they've been hinting at, them talking about we have these Arctic walls that we have yet to pass.
Yeah, I can't speak a lot as to, the design and the structure and all of that. When DIA was built, I was still really young. Um, and so, I wasn't even beginning to think about ghosts or paranormal phenomena or
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
conspiracy or any of that. Um, I really can't speak to the, I mean, it's a brilliant design.
Yeah.
And it's the facility itself is very easy to navigate, actually, compared to some of the other, major international airports. But I really can't speak too much as to the design.
Yes, yes.
Clarissa, I have to ask you this one. Okay. I know you probably investigate more on ghosts, not UFOs and cryptids, but I'm going to ask you anyway. They say that now that Area 51 has been disclosed to the public as existing, and S4, where they reverse UFOs, reverse engineer UFOs, that they moved it either to Utah or to Colorado. Do you ever see anything unusual in the skies of Colorado?
Well, we do report, or we do investigate reports of anomalies in the sky. Uh, and we if we get called out for unexplained aerial phenomena, we do investigate that pretty thoroughly. Um, to quickly and bluntly answer your question, I think you will find more of that in Utah than you will in Colorado.
Okay. Okay, yeah. Skinwalker Ranch, Blind Frog Ranch. Yeah, you got all kinds of crazy stuff in Utah. Oh yeah, absolutely. Um,
Not sure.
Author to author.
But this,
When I first published my first book, I was thrilled to death. I
Mhm.
was overjoyed. Um, I probably would have ran up to Zandine and kissed him on the mouth. I was just that happy.
No,
No,
no, no,
I'm
no,
just,
no.
I'm just kidding. When you
Never say never.
when
Oh,
you
I say never.
published your book, were you thrilled and excited,
Oh,
like I was?
yeah, absolutely. When you're holding that published book in your hand, something that you've been working on for years, and you've poured your heart and soul into it, blood, sweat, and tears, and then you're holding that printed copy, even if it's the proof copy, when your publisher sends you that proof copy and you're holding that proof in your hand for the first time ever, and it never gets old. Every time I hold one of my books in my hand for the first time, it's this overjoyed feeling of, wow, it's real. It's no longer up here, it's in
I
here
know
now.
it exists. I know it's forever. Yes, yes. Well, I used to do printed books, but now I'm doing ebooks, and I like the ebooks better now. Yeah, so that's cool. That's cool. And congratulations, Clarissa. I'm very proud of you. Um, what is one of your best cases?
Oh gosh. Um, I suppose one of our best cases, um, there was a farmhouse that we worked in the town of Nucla, Colorado. And it was a three-story farmhouse, and the owners could not keep it rented. Uh, Tenants would come in, they'd sign a lease, they'd pay the first and last month's rent and the deposit, and they'd move in. And before that first month is up, they're like, "Keep the money, we're out."
are, are,
And the owners could not keep it rented, and so they called us in to to see what's going on. And we we went in. There were 8 of us that night, and there was electricity, but there was no heat. And so um, they told us we could light a fire in the wood burning stove, but in order for us to do that, we had to first uh, knock out all of the excuse me 1 second, I've got a sneeze coming on. We had to knock all of the dead birds out of the stovepipe. There were birds that had built a nest in the flue, and we had to knock all of those out and then take a shovel and shovel them out of the stove and haul them off. It was pretty gross. We get the fire lit in the stove, get the house warmed up, because this was in late April, early May, and in Colorado, that's still really, really cold. And so we get the house warmed up, we get our equipment set up, we're running hot. It was big enough that we were able to run 3 teams. So we had one team monitoring our tech center. And then we had 2 other teams investigating different areas of the house, and then we would rotate out. And every single investigator at that location was having a personal experience that seemed to be custom tailored to their comfort threshold. So if there was an investigator that was unnerved by being touched, they were being touched. If there was one that was unnerved by seeing something, they were seeing something. If they were unnerved by hearing anomalous voices, they were hearing anomalous voices. Everybody's having all of these personal experiences that seem to be, custom to their threshold, except me. But I've been doing this for so long, I'm pretty desensitized to all of it. And so I'm kind of getting a little grumpy. I'm like, man, everybody's having all these experiences. They're getting all weirded out, creeped out, and I'm not experiencing anything. And myself and 2 other investigators were upstairs in the attic portion of the house. And I was standing a good 10 to 15 feet away from the audio recorder. And I'm looking into another area of that floor with a night vision monocular. So I could see in the dark. It wasn't recording, but it allowed me to see in the dark. And I saw what looked to be a dead bird on the floor in the attic, which makes sense. We'd encountered dead birds in that house earlier in the day. And it looked like a dead blackbird on the floor. And come to find out, it was a small piece of, black crumpled garbage bag. That was what it was. It was a piece of crumpled up black plastic. And when I'm first seeing this, I go, ew, what is that? And then I'm like, hey, is there a dead bird over there? And you hear the 2 other investigators who were much closer to the audio recorder going, oh no, I don't know where, and so it wasn't until after I got home and we're going through our data review, we're combing through the hours and hours and hours of video footage and the hours and hours and hours of audio footage. I'm going back through that audio recorder that was with us in that attic, and you hear me go, ew, what is that? And this voice goes, dead bird. And you hear me say, hey, is there a dead bird over there? Oh no, I don't know where. So then and there, I got my personal experience. I got what creeped me out, because whatever was there or whomever was there knew that I thought I was seeing a dead bird, or it was making me think that I was seeing a dead bird. So who or whatever was there was inside my head. And it's scary enough with just me in here. So,
it's like demons do that.
Right. And so I got my personal experience that tripped my creep trigger, because I'm like, oh, heck no. Yeah, no.
Wow. That's a good one.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
That's the good one. That's the weird stuff to where you just know it's something else, and you don't need it to happen. It might happen 5 or 6 times before you're like, but the first time it'll get you. Yeah.
Yeah. And Clarissa, I was only teasing him. We were talking about P. Diddy before you came on. So
Yeah, we're talking about how New Jersey just took over that whole situation, but it's always something. Yeah, but that so how do your kids I know you said your son is a paranormal investigator, so he must be on board with it. How does the rest of your family feel about what you do?
So my son, as soon as he was old enough to start understanding and comprehending, I started, teaching him the tricks of the trade. And he doesn't do it so much now. He's an adult. He's a newlywed. He's
Okay.
he's too busy being all
Congratulations, by the
grown up.
way.
Thank you. Yep, I gained a daughter this summer. Uh, and but my late husband was also an investigator, and so
Okay.
that was something that he and I were able to do together, as a family. Um,
Um,
and my husband was actually one of the best paranormal researchers I ever had the pleasure of working with. And some people say, well, that's because you trained him. Well, yeah, I did, but you can't train um, the temperament. You can't train how a person acts, interacts, and reacts in those situations. And so, working with my husband and watching him become this phenomenal researcher was quite a treat. And it's something that I miss very dearly.
Has he tried to contact you?
Yes, yes.
Uh,
When he was alive, we have 3 cats. And when he was alive, he would sneak up on them and goose them to get them to jump. And uh, now I will be sitting in the living room or laying in the bed or whatever, and all of a sudden one of the boys will just go, you know, the ding, they're up, and then and then they're looking up and meowing at, at what had just goosed them. I'm like, oh, okay, Daddy's here. I wish Daddy would do something else to make his presence known, but if that's what he can do right now, I'll take it.
Clarissa, and you don't have to answer me, but I'm just kind of curious. Well, how did he pass away?
He passed away last April 9th, from sudden onset cardiac failure.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
I
Most
just had a friend
people,
that passed on
yeah,
Monday from that.
yeah, most people, they get no warning. They just drop. Their heart stops beating, and they just drop. We had 15 minutes, and he passed in my arms.
Yes,
So I'm very fortunate for that.
I'm very, very sorry, Clarissa.
But he is
That's very sad. Yeah, yeah. Um. but Anyway,
great.
what investigations do you have upcoming?
Well,
So I have been on a bit of a hiatus um, since my husband passed.
yeah.
I think I've done one investigation, um, and I'm just now getting back into writing books. I let my technical manager and my case manager really run CCPI for the last 8 months, so I'm just starting to dip my toes back in. Um, and with the holidays, I don't think we have anything coming up. It's been a really good time, for family, because when Steele passed away, the entire team took a hit. It wasn't just me. Uh, and so we all took some time to um, mourn and grieve. Uh, they kept working cases, but I took a step back for a little while.
Did
And
your husband get to see your kid married? Did he get to meet his new daughter-in-law?
no, no, no. My husband passed April 9th, and my son and daughter-in-law were married July 8th.
Oh, okay.
And Clarissa, I'm also too taking a break from paranormal investigating. Sometime
No,
I'll
you're not.
probably
No, you're not.
but I be honest with you, I sort of got burned out. I got burned out. I've been on like 2,500 investigations, and yeah, I just sort of got burned out. And I love podcasting. So and I meet people like you and get to talk about all kinds of things and learn about you and stuff like that. So I actually kind of enjoy this. And plus, I still write. I write for 3 magazines, 1 newspaper, and I write my books. So I stay busy, So now I'm bored, you know.
Yeah. I still enjoy doing the interviews. I had my own internet radio show for a long time. And When that got to be work, I gave it up. And when it stopped being fun and started being work, I'm like, yeah, no, I'm done. But being a guest on podcasts and on the internet and terrestrial radio shows is always fun. And on top of being a paranormal researcher and writing all of these books, I also work full time. I own a small book publishing company, and I'm going to law school. So
Wow.
yeah, so there's no rest for the weary in my house.
So you're going to be a lawyer pretty soon.
Mhm.
Oh, in criminal law or business?
No, I'm focusing on property law and landlord tenant relations.
Okay, okay. Sounds good. Sounds good.
Yeah,
Wow.
we need that in California. These squatters out here and the way they can do your property. It's my son had a guy just let stand there and he was paying rent at first and then he stopped and he let it is like it took us 3 years, but we finally saw a service where it was too late. But we saw where you could hire your own biker to go in there with his dogs and he can, make the other guys so miserable he'll leave that place. But we were too late for that. But it's terrible out here. Everything's a civil matter. The police told me I went down to the property one time and I told the guys, I said, man, you guys are like some little boys. It's my son's life. You guys are playing around, but I tell you what, so they called the police and they came down there and I said, yeah, well, he said, I understand your frustration, but when I leave here, I don't want to have to come back here and then I'm coming to get you. Right. And because they actually were talking to anybody that came, their relative, the lady, when they started talking funny to the ladies that were there, like, we kind of lost it. We were like, you know what? These guys are nice, but they said, hey, you know what? They have rights. And the reason why they called us there in the first place was the original issue. The squatter he had trouble with a guy he tried to get money from a subletting, and he couldn't get that guy out of there. So it was just a crazy thing. And then you wait. By the time you go to file a civil case yourself, you realize even if you dot your I's and cross your T's, you have to get a lawyer because it's just too many things that happen to where, oh, I forgot this or didn't know about this or that. It's just, and but they need to change in California. So if you do become a lawyer, please come help us here, please.
Well, Colorado is quickly following in California's footsteps, and Colorado is not a landlord-friendly state. And I've been in property management for almost 10 years now. And so, I've learned a lot, and really what my goal is to be able to step up at the state level, and go to the Capitol and say enough's enough.
I like that. I like that.
And and work toward getting some of those laws and statutes changed.
Great.
So how do you deal with every year having to take, like in real estate? I don't know. You probably got your license or thinking about it, right?
Nope,
Well,
I don't have a real estate license. I've been, like I said, I've been in property management for almost 10 years. And so, I manage, other people's properties. Right now I'm running a structured community with 435 homes. So, yeah.
Zandy, when I think of Colorado, I think of one horror movie by Stephen King, The Shining.
It's Johnny. I know. Oh yeah, man.
Yeah, and Clarissa, isn't there a hotel like in The Shining in Colorado? I know there's one in Oregon.
Right. So the Stanley Hotel in Estes Park, Colorado, is where Stephen King was inspired to write The Shining. And he actually, it's said that he had a ghostly experience while he stayed there. And there's a lot of rumors, around Stephen King's involvement in the Stanley Hotel. He did not write The Shining at the Stanley. He wrote The Shining in Boulder, which is not too far from Estes Park. But The Shining was written in Colorado, but and the Overlook Hotel from The Shining was inspired by the Stanley Hotel.
Oh.
And the Stanley Kubrick version of the movie with Jack Nicholson it was filmed on a Hollywood set, but the remake, the Steven Weber version, was filmed at the Stanley Hotel in Estes Park. So, and there's been a lot of reports of paranormal phenomena there over the years. Paranormal TV really made a big deal about it. Ghost Hunters, Ghost Adventures, all the big guys really made a big deal about the Stanley Hotel. It's not as haunted as Hollywood would have you think. Yes, there are a couple of resident specters there, but it's not what Hollywood would have you think it is.
Have you been there, Clarissa?
Oh yeah, many times. And I actually had the privilege of investigating there with some of the guys from television, and then conducting my own independent research. And what you see on the screen and what actually happened are two entirely different things, which, Paul, I'm sure you know about that. And so, again, a lot of the stuff at the Stanley, has been inflated over the years.
Oh yeah.
Yes, there are a few there, but it's nothing like what Hollywood would have you believe is there.
Oh yeah, and I've worked with a lot of the TV shows and everything, and reality TV. I learned about reality TV is not reality.
Oh no, it's not. Clarissa, I noticed some of the themes in your books, like you had the haunted rails, and you also had about the lost tracks, the rails. I know, so you have themes of the railroad and traveling. How were you inspired? Have you had some paranormal experience that motivated you for those angles, or how did that come about?
So my book, Phantom Trains and Haunted Rails of the U.S., was actually inspired by my son and a friend of mine. My son, he was all about trains from the time he first learned how to say choo-choo train until he was about 10 years old. He was all about trains. And then I also had a really close friend who was what they call a rail fan. And that is somebody who actually likes to go to train yards and film trains as they're coming down the tracks. And they could tell you about every locomotive. They could tell you about every car.
Wow.
They could tell you about every single different line and the history of them. They're called rail fans. And so my son was this budding ghost hunter. And my friend who was a rail fan was also a paranormal researcher. And so I wanted to get them a book about ghost trains for Christmas. And I couldn't find one. And I was so bummed out for like 2 days. I was really bummed. And I'm like, well, dummy, you're a writer. Why don't you just do the research and write a book about it? And so that's how Phantom Trains and Haunted Rails of the U.S. was born. Yeah, there wasn't a book about ghost trains. And so I did the research and wrote the book, and now there is.
Oh, that's cool. In 1973, 1976, I was in the Army. 1979 to 1986, I was in the Army. And during my time, my first tour, in 1974, I actually got to ride on the Orient Express for a short distance, not a long distance, but a short distance. Yeah. And let me tell you, it's haunted. It is haunted.
I believe it.
Yeah.
I believe it.
And
when you've got a vehicle with that much history, oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I have to write on this because James Bond wrote on it. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles wrote on it. I mean, Hercules Play. He wrote on the Orient Express, so yeah, it's a legend. Yeah.
First, I was going to ask you about the Demon's Cove. What do you know about demons and demonology?
Oh, so Demons of the Coven is a fiction book that I co-wrote with Lexi Doyle. It's a novella, if you will. but I do have extensive experience in demonology. You know, my bachelor's degree is in biblical studies. Um,
Okay.
and
Okay.
I do have
We can talk
I do
there.
have a pretty extensive, yeah, I do have a pretty extensive background in demonology and uh, dealing with those particularly nasty situations.
Well, it's really, so I asked a lot of people when, they're saying they're investigating or like what their highest source of power. And you'd be surprised how many people don't know who Samyaza is. Now, for me, for like what I believe in, I mean, I know they have they have a Mesopotamian pantheon, they have the Iranian pantheon, they have the jinns, when we talking about demons. But for me, the demons started when Samyaza fell with the solution of sorcery. And, there was a lot of things. He became Uzzah, in Egypt, the affair of Uzzah and Azza. They have all these different things, these offshoots of, for me, seems like the fallen angels. And the reason why I say that is because when you look at the money trail, the rich people tracing themselves to, say, like Nimrod. So if you look at Nimrod being the treasured hunter of that being, that high being, Yahweh, whatever people believe to call him, that being, he had that power following him, but when he fell out of grace, even with the city of Nineveh doing all the Reiki, the Ouija board, and all the things that he did to be, the first guy to do that, well, he was using that fallen angel magic and sorcery and things that they had. I mean, the way I was looking at it. And so when I see people nowadays that say they're, whatever demons they're associated with, they don't seem to know anything about Samyaza. They know about, ways to invoke things. And, of course, with Kabbalism, they have a whole different necessary evils. They have a whole thing of invoking amulets to keep them safe and different things. But a lot of people, they don't even know what source. They don't even know where their source of power comes, or anything about demonology. So it seems like people are really in the dark, but they fear the demons. What's your take on it?
So you know, my simplest textbook definition, of a demon is an entity that either never occupied a human body, or it has been so long since they've occupied a human body that they've lost their humanity. That's
That's safe to say, because they've been helping us. Well, according to some of the Egyptian rabbis and other ones before the new formation, I mean, they were neither bad or good. And Damon in Greek was
right.
a extra human. They helped and
Right.
hurt. So, like you said, they were at some point a part of, oh, at least the way the lore goes, they were part of society, had some kind of humanity, the way they were
Right.
used. But
But it's
yeah,
been so long that they've lost that humanity. Uh, and humans innately fear what they don't understand, as well they should. And I think that is a very safe uh, tactic to have, especially when you're dealing with something, potentially of a demonic nature. To absolutely fear it. Yes, I really and truly think people should. Especially if you don't know conclusively who or what you're dealing with. Uh,
what's the strongest demon that you hear, or like, say, like a demon like Shamden, or what's one that comes to mind for you that you've come across in your work that seems really powerful?
well, what what keeps coming, what keeps popping up most recently, is the new demon, the one that they keep talking about on television, that never, you can look in all of the lore, all of the books. There's no history of this, and I'm trying to remember what it's called. Um,
Bastema?
no, no.
Because he's
Um,
one of those like that.
yeah, I'd have to go and actually no, I took a screenshot of it not too long ago. I can look it up real quick. But it has never been in any lore, um,
Mhm.
nor I mean, there's no record of it in any of the texts, um, things of that nature. And so when you're uh, when you are encountering something, and this name keeps coming up and coming up and coming up and coming up, and there's no historical data for it, no background on it, no lore on it. It's like it seems like it didn't previously exist.
Boxing.
You almost wonder if you're now encountering something with a Tulpa effect, where so many, very similar to like Hatman and Slenderman phenomena, where people all of a sudden start experiencing, this made up thing that didn't previously exist. That, okay, it didn't previously exist, but now it's existing. So it's almost like a thought form where it didn't previously exist, but because so many people are putting weight into it, that now it's coming to pass. Here it is. Let's see, a demon in the
Well, with CERN and Gentleman, the facilities, they're messing with the dimensions and the God particles. So with CERN and Gentleman, there's also in the quantum chips, the new quantum chips, and their quadrupling of realities and going back and forth in multiverses. I mean, they're getting wild with that,
Right.
So,
and Zozo is the one that keeps popping up.
What's your name?
Zozo, Zozo.
Oh yeah, Zozo. Yeah.
Yeah. And again, there's no lore on it. There's no mention of Zozo in any of the scrolls or the ancient texts or anything like that. But all of a sudden, we have this Zozo demon popping up. But another thought or another theory is, who's to say that demons can't be born?
Well, there's a paper by Wachowski, The Secret Creation of Demons, which it kind of leaves room for that. I was reading the paper on the other day, yeah.
So this
but Solomon had command over them, and a lot of them, you have to know the history of their father, their relatives, like down the line. So, but you didn't know all the true origins, but to invoke them, say like the seven wind, dark entity of whatever, and it's invoking who was the guy Pazuzu that they had like in The Exorcist, which Pazuzu is a Mesopotamian demon. He's not a Catholic demon, because Cassiati would be that demon that affects the womb where they invoke Pazuzu. But we know that Pazuzu is used to influence other demons if they're actually in there doing anything. His power is supposed to be over theirs. But but Zozo popping on the scene. I know that at the time when Jesus, when some of the people try to say, well, Jesus, you're actually not the Son of God. You actually used Beelzebub to calm down these demons when you did your work. You actually used a stronger demon to help you. And he said, well, no, I'm over these. He disagreed with him, of course. But and then you see Solomon working with demons he didn't know. The only reason why he could get in contact with them was the cedar ring. And then you have some people dealing with the demons, new ones coming that they didn't know. And they say, well, what's that in Elijah when the demon appeared that had been eating all the brides? It was like he had eaten like seven grooms. And so when the one groom asked, well, how do I deal with this? And they asked him to burn a certain fish gut in the bridal chamber for this demon along with cedar, and it subdued the demon. But they didn't know who this demon was at the time, even though Solomon already used the 72 demon to, build the temple.
Mm-hmm.
And
but this new one came out, so yeah, Zozo coming out of nowhere, but I haven't actually heard of him, so that's pretty cool.
There is a lot of new demons with new names, and Zendine's been on a lot of my demon cases. They call me the Demon Warrior. A lot of people who have demonic attachments, I give them a full submersion baptism, and it actually works, and that's a basic form of exorcism. And some of the demon cases where the occupants said that Asmodeus, Abraxas, Belial, Moloch were terrorizing them. We've actually done those cases, and we were very successful with our demonic cases.
That's wonderful.
Have you ever did a baptism?
Yeah.
Yes, I have.
Oh, okay, okay. And in the what when I learned about how to bless a house, I do a Roman Catholic house blessing. I learned it from two priests, and I would just sit there and talk to them. They would be smoking their cigarettes, talking about this, talking about that. And one day I saw a book on there that said Blessing Homes. I never knew I was going to be a paranormal investigator. And I said, "Can I borrow that book?" And I read it, and that's what I utilized. And that's how I learned.
Well,
That's wonderful.
Is
Thing
that your
about demons.
husband right there in that
Yeah,
picture?
actually, yeah, that's my late husband.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow. Wow.
yeah.
Wow.
Paul, I was going to say about the demon cases, and Clarissa probably could attest to this. The tricky thing about those is that, like, whatever method you use, for me, as a, I believe in Christ. I really don't need a lot of I don't need rosy beads, I don't need water, I don't need that. I just have a Bible, and really it's really about how I was going into that investigation. But that being said, so if you're not, if you're like kind of off, and what I mean by that, say that you went there, you had an argument, or you're thinking about sex or whatever you're thinking about, that can be exploited when you go in there. So you gotta
Oh yeah.
you have to be, yeah, that can really happen, because you can't really
Yeah.
exercise something if you're not right. But
Yeah.
I remember one lady we did, and I was asking her, she thought, well, we thought it was a succubus at first, but the thing is, whether it was a succubus or demon, what she had going, she wasn't really ready to denounce, like, whatever influences that brought her to be under that influence. She was sticking to it. I was like, well, what do you consider yourself? What's your source of powers? He goes, well, my grandmother's a psychic. My great grandmother was one. And I'm like, well, do you know anything about, Beelzebub, Samuel? She didn't know anything about that, but she didn't know what to denounce, and she didn't know what lane to go into, like, to stay permanently away from that. So it was hard. And so I was like, well, until, really until, basically she was ready to change it. It was going to be with her for a long time.
Yeah. We got called into a case. I was actually brought in from Colorado to New Jersey
Okay.
to work this case.
Yeah.
And the clients had called in a local research team who told them that they had an incubus in their house.
Okay.
And and everything that they were going through was paranormal. And the mother had heard me on another radio show, reached out. She's like, "We will
Okay.
pay your airfare if and put you up in a hotel if you will come out here." I'm like,
It was serious.
I'm not going to say no to a free trip.
Yeah.
And as soon as I got notification that I had plane tickets, I'm like, yeah, okay, I'm going. And so I went in there, and I squirreled all over that house. There's some hilarious video footage of me, sliding on my belly on their hardwood floors, listening. But the aspect that made them think that there was an incubus in their house that was plaguing the teenage daughter
Okay. Incubus.
was bruising on this daughter's hips and inner thighs.
Okay. Okay. I understand.
And they also reported that they could hear it walking up and down the halls at night. And they're in a house that was well over 100 years old. So first, again, this video footage is hilarious of me, on my belly sliding all over these floors, with my ear to the floor and everything. And I was able to debunk the whole, walking up and down the halls at night, because
Yeah.
those hardwood floors, those original 100-year-old beams, whenever the furnace would kick on, that wood would expand and it would pop each of those floorboards going down the hall.
Okay. Okay.
And then as it cooled, it would contract and pop each of those beams going backwards.
Ah. Okay.
So, debunked all of that. The feelings.
And what
of
about the
being
bruises?
So after I had a one-on-one with the 14-year-old daughter, come to find out that 14-year-old daughter and daughter's boyfriend had been doing the nasty,
Okay.
and that's where the bruises were coming from. And so I told the daughter, I'm like, obviously anything you tell me is in confidence. I said,
Yeah.
but you need to tell your mama, because she is thinking, that there is some kind of, yeah, she is thinking that you are under attack. Or she's thinking that you are under spectral attack. Your mom just spent well over $1,000 to fly me out and put me up in a hotel, or, for the weekend,
Yeah.
investigating your house because you lost your virginity and didn't tell the truth about it.
And where was that at? I mean, what city?
So
I mean,
I'd have to go back and
what
check
state?
that.
I
It
mean,
was in
what
New
state?
Jersey. It was in New Jersey.
New Jersey. Okay.
Yeah. And then, the mother, when I'm revealing to the mother, my findings, going, this is what is causing what sounds like the footsteps going up and down your hallway, is the expansion and contraction of the floorboards, these really old
Nice.
floorboards knocking each other as they heat up and cool down. And she was screaming at me, going, I can't believe I wasted all that money on you. You don't know what you're talking about. You don't know nothing. And it was about 2 weeks later, I got an apology email from her, because the daughter had messed up and said, this is what's going on.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and I believe the ghost lady, because, you can hear the footsteps when the furnace kicks on, and then you hear it again after the furnace shuts off. And when they actually stopped and paid attention to it, and so I did get an apology email, but I mean, this one, in that New Jersey temper, she's in my face screaming, and I'm like, I'm just going to pack up and take the cab back to the hotel, and I'm going to get on the airplane tomorrow afternoon because it's all paid for. And, thanks for the trip,
Well,
have
you
a
did
nice
her
life.
favor. I mean, you did her favor. I mean, the incubus, they're lucky for them. It wasn't an incubus or succubus, because you
Absolutely.
wouldn't just get rid of them that easy. So they're lucky.
Absolutely. But for that local team to go in and say, oh, the footsteps that you're hearing combined with the bruises on your daughter, that's the work of an incubus.
Yeah.
And,
I mean,
and that's
wow.
something that really chaps me in this field, is there are far, far, far too many individuals and organizations that immediately jump to the paranormal conclusion instead of trying to debunk what the client is experiencing. First of all, you have to let the client know, number one, I believe you. I believe you are experiencing something, but it's my job to determine what. So, let the client know, hey, I believe you. I believe you are experiencing something, but then it's my job to find out what they are experiencing, and, and to be thorough, and to, to debunk. And, yeah, it's kind of a bummer when, when you're able to debunk everything.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
at the same token, if you're able to debunk everything, then you don't have to try to figure out how you're going to get rid of it, or get your client to peacefully coexist with whatever's there, or, whatever avenue they want to pursue.
Right. Right. I mean,
Clarissa. Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, Bob.
Oh, okay. Clarissa, do you ever investigate cryptids?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Yeah, I haven't been this year, but we went squatching a couple of times last year. That was one of my husband's favorite things to do.
And you have a Bigfoot in Colorado, right?
We have several.
Okay.
It'll be so high.
Cool.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Zendine. What were we going to ask?
Oh no. We're coming up an hour. I mean, we're real past the hour. I know we're getting our last questions in, but she was making good on the demon talk. A lot of people don't want to talk about the demons. She was a trooper.
Oh, Clarissa, what is your next book?
So the next book that's coming out is Generational Curse, and it will be out, I think, the second week in January of 25.
And it's called what?
Generational Curse.
Oh, and this is nonfiction?
No, it's my last fiction book. There's been
Okay.
Yeah,
a
last
there's
fiction
been
book.
there have been numerous requests for me to do a fiction book. I prefer to do nonfiction over fiction, but either this was I started writing it before my husband died. He absolutely loved it. And then obviously when he passed, I put it down, and it's only been recently that I picked it back up and started finishing it. So I'm in the last probably 100 pages of it right now, getting it wrapped up so that my editor can work her magic and get it to print.
And where can people buy your books?
Well, Amazon.
Amazon. Okay.
Amazon. Yeah, as long as you spell my last name correctly. If you spell it Vazquez, you'll find all of my books.
That's good.
All right.
From Grand Junction, Colorado. Like I said, if you want a few native Colorado people that I've heard of, native people from Colorado. I mean, everybody's from somewhere else.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Absolutely.
A lot
Oh,
of
my dogs are
transplants.
all excited.
Yeah, a lot of transplants, but I'm born and raised Colorado native.
Yeah, we got a lot of things we're gonna have to get you back on here again because it's like a performance. You think I should have done this, I should have done that, like all these things, but it's a lot of stuff we because you have a lot of knowledge that we need to ask you. But thank you for everything. I mean, I'm glad the books. It's impressive the amount of books you've written and you're into your process, and I mean, like you're a heavyweight, So
Thank you.
And Clarissa, have you been to California?
I have.
Okay. Okay. What do you think about California?
It's hot.
I can tell you, yeah.
I haven't been to Cali for 8, almost 9 years. I took my son there on a vacation a few years ago. We went to Universal, did all the Hollywood tourist trap
Yeah.
stuff. And then, but then we went and did some of the other lesser known stuff. Let's see, we drove out there, so we drove to Vegas first, and then we did Bodie Ghost Town, and
Oh, you did Bodie?
yep, we did Bodie.
So did
You
I.
gotta hit
So
Joshua
did I.
Tree next time. And Landers, Joshua Tree and Palmer and all. You gotta hit all those places for your
Yeah,
ufology and your vortexes and energy.
yeah, yeah. And we did Malibu. We actually camped in Malibu State Park a couple of nights on that trip.
Nice.
Yeah, and my son, he was 16 at the time, and there was a professional chess player on the boardwalk at Malibu, and or no, it was Venice. It was Venice Beach. On the boardwalk at Venice, there was a professional chess player,
Wow.
and my son says, "Mom, I want to play," and so I pitched in the $20, and my son sat down and whooped him, and the guy was like, he says, "You young men are going places," and
Wow.
yeah, so
Oh my
it
God.
was
When I went
So
to Venice Beach, I was auditioning for the Gong Show and American Bandstand.
wow. Okay.
American Bandstand didn't take me because they said I was too old, and Gong Show didn't take me because they just said my act wasn't funny enough. So,
Oh, that's too bad.
yeah.
Oh,
But
I got a tattoo on Venice Beach. This
oh,
one
that's
right here. That one right
that's
there, I got on Venice Beach.
oh my
So,
God. But
yeah.
while I was there, I did a commercial for this nightclub that was featured in Thank God It's Friday. So I was one of the dancers. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and he was telling you, I did WKRP with Les Nessman and Herb Talik and all those guys. So that was a blast being down there. I did like 3 episodes, but Herb Talik is he played the races, but he actually he adopted. He had actually black children, and then you had Johnny Fever, Lonnie Anderson, Burt Reynolds, all those people coming down there. And then when you go, like I was telling Paul, you go into the lunchroom, you want to ask people for the autograph, but you don't want to seem like you're like a noob, but it's like everybody there, George
Yeah, you don't want a
Hamilton.
fanboy right there at work. Yeah.
Hey,
You know, and when you're in Los Angeles, almost everybody has been in a movie. They
yeah,
done either cameos or they were extras. everybody I talk to, oh yeah, I was in this TV show or I was in this movie. It's like crazy. Everybody.
They do.
LA's the place to be, man.
I mean, it can happen. I mean, but then also we know the other things too now. We know what's associated with it. That's ball territory. BAAL,
Oh, Clarissa, do you have a website?
Yeah.
huh?
So you can find out more about myself and about the Colorado Coalition of Paranormal Investigators by visiting www.coloparanormal.com.
Fantastic.
Okay, it's different from the one you get. They put another one up there, but that's the one. Okay.
And also, too, Phil, when he gets on, he'll probably have this ready, well, ready for a premiere
Edited.
3 days from now, probably. And so I'll make sure that you get the link. This also, too, is recorded with IMDb. So this,
Oh, great.
yep, yep. So
Paul
I,
loves. He gets it going.
so
Love it. I
anyway,
love it.
we're up in the hour. It was so fantastic interviewing you, Clarissa. I'm very proud of you about your books and everything else. So just keep on doing what you're doing.
Thanks for having me, guys. It was a blast.
Yes.
All
Gotta
right.
come again.
Thank you.
All right. Good night.
Good night.
Ah,
Yeah. Here, I come. You know what this started? Only United there. That's it. Here.
Ar- ar- ar-
Here. Live loves me. What's up? So that's the what up. Up. I will check it. Yeah, look like we are. The significant. House I get the crazy.